Chapter 150 to 152. The third Mizukage sat in his office, drinking his afternoon coffee and reading his last report for the day when suddenly, various clan heads and division leaders, basically the whole freaking council, barged into his office looking constipated. What are you all doing here? The Mizukage tilted his head in confusion, only for the councilmen to angrily narrow their eyes at him. You sent the 7 swordsmen to the land of fire. Tsurumi Swearan, the head of the Swearan clan, barked out in an accusatory tone. Oh. So that's why the old geezers are gathered here looking at me, as if I stole their spare teeth. The Mizukage finally understood before he returned back to his paperwork, while starting to talk. No worries. The treaty had a few loopholes, and this is one of them. He dismissively waved his hand around, while feeling smug about this scheme of his. Due to the nature of ninja work, there was no way the treaty could contain a clause of complete forbiddance to enter a territory belonging to one of the 5 big nations. The treaty only said a big force is forbidden to be dispatched onto the territory. I sent only 7 of them. No matter how you look at it, nobody can say anything. The third Mizukage smiled smugly, thinking how he used the system to screw Konoha and the Land of Fire over. Mizu Dash, one of the councilmen, patiently started, but was quickly interrupted by the Mizukage. Don't worry. Everything is just fine. I know that ordering them to destroy a few important towns might be too much, but I have full trust in our 7 swordsmen. They know when to run. Plus, he took out a few files. I have already made sure to create fail-proof documents saying the mission was a valid one, given by a noble from the land of Earth, who hates Konoha and lost a lot of money due to the newly established tax law of the Land of Fire. All ways how anyone could screw us over diplomatically are covered. Now we only have to wait for the 7 to return. Lord Mizukage, the swordsmen are Dash, the head of the Hozuki clan, tried, but you are still not convinced? The Mizukage frowned, not raising his head from the document he was the whole time reading. You really think the ability of our strongest ninja group is so weak? He sighed in exasperation and continued in a bored drawl. Fine. I can assure you nothing can happen to them. Konoha is still consolidating their power, and most of their jonins are focused on border outposts. Most of their ANBU are on illegal and secret missions out of the Land of Fire. The only Konoha ninjas doing missions located inside the Land of Fire are chunins at best, and our 7 swordsmen can eat those guys for breakfast. This entire thing was meticulously planned. I even used a lot of our ANBU to draw Konoha's attention elsewhere, so our boys can rampage all they want in the Land of Fire, while I am focusing on tightening the defense of our territory in case Konoha wanted to retaliate. Not even a mouse will move in the Land of Water without us knowing about it. See, I got it all thought out. No need to dash. Shut up. The head of the Yuki clan, Himino's father, burst out as he glared at the Mizukage, who finally raised his head and looked at the elder in bewilderment and confusion. I've got enough of your bullshit. We came to tell you the 7 swordsmen have returned. For our dead, and the remaining 3 will need a few months of recuperation at best. And at worst their injuries will never heal, permanently lowering their fighting potential. The mission ended up in a failure. The second they were heading towards the first targeted town, they encountered a freaking Ringo Amuri, who merrily slaughtered her way through them, without even getting a single scratch. Moreover, she destroyed Kabudawari and stole Samahata. He finished while breathing hard, greedily gulping air and gripping his chest. Just remembering it almost gave him a heart attack. The more he talked, the more the Mizukage's expression darkened. How could they be back so soon? Then his question changed. How could they have failed? The second the Yuki clan elder mentioned Ringo, however, there was only one response the Mizukage was able to give as his expression turned ugly, with a grain of powerless hopelessness in it. Fuck it all. Again them. Minato Namikaze sighed for the nth time as he filled his 100th paper in the office of the Hokage. If I knew I would become a paper slayer upon achieving my dream, I would never volunteer for this shit. Fighting hundreds of Idaho and ninjas was much more enjoyable than bickering with old geezers, doing paperwork, and why the heck do I feel as if my work became ridiculous? Leading this village is worse than explaining to a 5-year-old boy that girls do not have cooties or giving the talk to my students. Minato mentally raged. Is it only me or the councilmen in this village are all mentally disadvantaged? Why the heck do I have to sign paperwork about taxes? Isn't that the whole reason why the civilian council was formed? To ease the Hokage's workload in times of war? For someone who vehemently refused to be dismissed after the war ended, they clearly are happy with not fulfilling the reason why they even exist. Fucking lazy sly old snakes who can't do anything but complain and whine. See how I dismiss you? Minato mumbled under his nose as anger started rising in him. The more paperwork that didn't belong to him, but the members of the civilian council he saw on his table. Alas, not even his 4 shadow clones were capable of being satisfactory help to Minato in his new duties. As he was thinking of a way to flay the civilian council alive, the door suddenly creaked open, causing Minato to smile widely as his pregnant tomato of a wife. Not that he had the guts to call her that to her face, walked inside his office with her confident grin. Yo, Minato. What's up? Enjoying the paperwork? Kushina cheerfully asked, innocently smiling, but Minato wisely kept quiet as he spotted her threatening gaze. Hehe, serves you right, taking my hat and putting the kicking devil inside of me, bastard. You can forget about having sex for the next half-decade at least. Yes, dear. Minato unsurely answered with a twisted expression, while in the back of his mind, having a very, very bad premonition of his very own personal Armageddon happening, without him having any ability to stop it. Good. I am sure this won't destroy your good mood then. Kusha nodded in satisfaction and sat in the guest chair in front of his desk with a delighted groan before she put on his table a small book and slid it towards him. What is it? Minato took the book into his hands and froze for a bit. Another new bingo book? Now? The last one came 2 weeks ago. He narrowed his eyebrows in worry. It was a huge secret, but the bingo book only updated once per 2 months. If the update came sooner, that meant someone extremely extraordinary was put into it, and they could not wait. Minato browsed through the pages until he came upon a new entry. This has got to be some cruel joke, right? He looked with a hopeful expression at his exasperated wife, who just shrugged. 4th SS rank coming from Kirigakure? Seriously? Plus this one is yet another rogue ninja? That makes 4 rogue SS rankers all from Kiri, and all of them are most likely in one group. Let's see. She was given the title by Kirigakure? That's rare. They didn't give such a high ranking to anyone yet. Minato nodded, realizing how serious this was. For a ninja village to give their own rogue ninja SS rank, it meant something serious must have happened that completely frightened the village higher-ups. Huh. She was given the title for, oh fuck it all to hell. Minato stood up and banged his palm onto his table, while gritting his teeth after reading how exactly she earned that title. Say what now? She killed 4 members of the 7 swordsmen of the Kiri, and injured 3 of them to the degree they would need months of recuperation, stole one of the 7 swords and destroyed another, and this all happened on the territory of the Land of Fire, and I am only getting to know about it from the bingo book. Minato's chakra flared from anger, forcing Kushina to offset the pressure with her chakra. Lord Hokage, the secretary quickly ran inside as she felt the chakra flare, only to stop in her tracks as she spotted the furious glare of Minato and the 4 ANBU guards frozen stiff on the ceiling. Go and call the council meeting. Minato's voice was quiet but very menacing. I want to see what that snake Danzo has to say about this. There is no way he did not know about it. Needless to say, the Konohagakure's council room was not peaceful that night. A few months passed since Rei led the occupants of the Harima village into Yuzushio, causing it to experience a mind-shattering change. After setting the new occupants in, Conan's and Rei's clones were made to thoroughly educate the people from the Harima village for the entire first month. It was quite a bother too, since there were around 200 people from the Harima village. From the experience, it was obvious it was a waste of clones that could do something else, so Rei used the portal to bring back all the Uzumaki from the Bairi company under some kind of fake pretense. These people had to wear a hair color altering seal anyway, since the Uzumaki clan members were a highly sought-after commodity, even now in the ninja circles of the elemental nations. It would not do to have an abundant amount of bright crimson-haired people in one place. Rei just had to put the secrecy seal on them, dismiss them from the company, and bring them to the Yuzushio village to teach and prepare the new occupants for their future work as traders. Rei wanted to recreate the Uzumaki clan under his order anyway, so this was something that had to eventually happen. What took him by surprise, however, was how obnoxiously grateful the Uzumaki clansmen were. Rei finally understood why Naruto was, well, Naruto. Apparently, it was in his blood. It was not as if the Uzumaki people were stupid. They just couldn't live without showing their gratitude for being saved. Rei was actually very flabbergasted when he realized he would not need to put any effort into bringing them under him since they already recognized him as their leader. In the end, the sullen Rei reluctantly expended 5 clones to teach them useful seals and the basics of sealing. If they decided to be so loyal, it was his duty to make them useful, no? Just like that, the first clan of Yuzushio was formed, numbering 23. For the following month, Rei and Conan were run ragged, gathering any and all Uzumaki they could get their hands on without people noticing, and the Uzumaki clan count in the Yuzushio quickly rose to an astonishing 152, without anyone in the elemental nations even realizing. At least, Tsunade was making their work easier by settling the newcomers in the village by herself. It was also quite annoying explaining to over 100 people their heritage, and then persuading them to come to Yuzushio. Fortunately, most of them lived in remote places with harsh conditions, so many jumped at the offer, and only a few of the wealthier ones had to be brain-raped of their recent memories through seals after vehemently refusing to join no matter what Rei or Conan did. Alas, their loss. Literally. Slowly, 20 educated Uzumaki from the Bairi company taught other Uzumaki what the Bairi company deemed as the basics of necessary knowledge for their employees. These then taught others, and the chain reaction continued until Ray found himself with a village full of people that could knowledge-wise pass for an average merchant. But Ray was not satisfied and ordered them to scram and learn intermediate and advanced stuff before bragging in front of him. What good are merchants who are unable to swindle even nobles, much less the daimyos, to him? He needed real professionals. Ray also started going rounds around the places where people were treated the worst for various reasons. Whether it was because their feudal lords were stingy pieces of shit, or because the countries were so poor there was just no way to survive, Ray collected them all like Pokemons. The size of Yuzushio was gradually expanding. Day by day, tens of new people were brought into the town by Ray. Naturally, since Ray himself brought them over, he was regarded as their savior and the new leader. He could only shake his head in exasperation while thinking, Orochimaru, you really are a genius. It's so easy to get loyal followers by saving desperate people. Coup. As the population grew bigger, Ray suddenly found himself in a need to create farmlands. His main supplier of food was the Bairi Company, and while it cost him exactly nothing since the company was his, he would rather Yuzushio be self-sufficient than digging into his pockets. Even if he didn't pay for the food, the company supplied it at loss to its profits, which meant in the end, Ray suffered loss anyway. It was such a sad fate too. Hence, the villagers had to learn how to farm. It was all for the greater good of Ray's of Yuzushio's well-being. Most of the people Ray brought to Yuzushio came from small rural villages that focused on farming anyway, so getting the Yuzushio farming project started was not such a hard thing. A lot of farmers wanted to continue their lifelong profession, but Ray first ordered them to get a proper education. Only when they attained at least an intermediate level of knowledge did he allow them to sign up for a piece of land around Yuzushio to start their farms. Well, not like the intermediate level was something extremely tough. Even an average farmer could pass the test with an acceptable grade in 2 months if he put his all into it. For basic grade, 3 weeks were enough, while the advanced would take half year. These timeframes were naturally for average people, so the few geniuses that were found actually managed to learn it a lot faster. One even attained advanced grade in under 3 months. Honestly, finding talent through this method, while also making sure that Yuzushio's future will be assured to become extraordinary due to the intelligence of its occupants, was much easier than Ray previously thought. There were only a very few of those who refused to learn, mostly because the level of education provided to peasants and farmers in the world was abysmal at best. There were civilian schools, but these were only in big towns or ninja villages. Even then, ninja school had much higher requirements in things like math, and even then it was only learning stuff that could potentially help in their future ninja careers, like calculating throwing angles, distances by the shadow cast on the ground, etc. The civilian school mostly focused on things like how to run a business and so on. These were for daughters and sons of wealthy merchants, after all. Other kids were simply homeschooled. The ninja schools also mainly focused on indoctrin teaching the kids who their owner is, or the so-called wills of elements. The most educated people were generally nobles, followed by wealthy merchants. What Ray was creating in Yuzushio, no noble could be bothered by it. Nobody in this world would educate the entire village to the level surpassing even merchants or nobles in some subjects. Well, nobody ever accused Ray of being sane. Thanks to the education, the farmers who signed up for a piece of land didn't have a hard time grasping some advanced farming techniques or usage of farming tools Ray provided. He, Tsunade, and Konan could use Mokuton, and they made sure to create special trees they gave to that small village in Amigakure when they first started their journey all over the Yuzushio. Putting the effect of that together with some special seals and farming tools, Ray estimated a harvest could be up to 6 times a year, with the yield being 3 to 5 times as bountiful as normally seen in this world. Ray was basically using nature energy and sealing arts to shamelessly cheat his way through. His shamelessness power level reached 9,000 when he created an auto-gathering paper tag for crops that could gather them in a certain radius. Naturally, thanks to the secrecy seal, the villagers had enough chakra to activate them on their own. The tag had a sealing matrix with a seal that gathered the crop and deposited it into a special storage seal on it. Honestly, being a farmer was probably the easiest profession in Yuzushio, with the number of cheats Ray provided for them. Whether it was planting, watering, or gathering, the farmers were basically just supervisors who sat in their rocking chairs while fishing most of their days away. Well, food supply was the most important thing when it came to self-sufficiency, so Ray had it well covered, while making sure the people would love doing the job, since the taxes were extremely high at 50% of each yield. Alas, with 6 harvests per year and the cheating farming tools provided for free, especially since the order was done by Ray, their savior, the farmers reluctantly relented. It was only when they calculated their losses and gains did they find out that the tax didn't even matter. They would get rich by just sitting on their asses, tending to their plots of land from time to time by taking a stroll through it and activating the seals. In a short 6 months, Yuzushio had over 3,000 inhabitants and over 50 farms all around. The people were getting more knowledgeable, showing their talents in various fields. It was a lot of work for Rei, Conan, and Tsunade, while Mei and Ringo were closed in their workshop, trying to make progress in making a special sword close to one of the 7 swords of Kiri, and blowing the place up at least once per 2 days. The Yuzushio village was very small for now. Not even 1/5 of the whole place was filled, but something great, something never before seen in the elemental nations, was steadily being created. Rei and Tsunade were lying on a blanket, fiercely making out while their hands roamed the body of the other as they panted and moaned in between the kisses. Tsunade's feet were firmly locked around Rei's waist, while Rei's body was pinning her down onto the blanket, pressing his chest on hers. It was already midnight and both were very disheveled, their clothes torn in many places since they were at it for 8 hours straight. By now, it was only their training as a ninja and countless nights spent together that prevented both of them from acting on their lust, undressing, and having straight-out sex with each other right on the hill, close to the village of the Kagaya clan they currently watched, who said something so senseless, such as the observation jobs were boring. Suddenly, Rei stopped and pulled a bit away from Tsunade, who let out a protesting groan, pulling herself up to reach for his lips, only to be stopped by Rei putting his hand on her cheek and gently caressing it, waking her from the pheromones-induced desire. "We will have a guest in a minute. Let's tidy ourselves up." Rei pecked her lips for one more time before pulling a new set of clothes from his dimension storage seal and started to change his attire. Tsunade huffed at that. She finally got her alone time with Rei, and it barely lasted 8 incredible, sweet, hazy, quick, amazing hours. Shit, I really do love him beyond all reason, don't I? She bit her lower lip while her cheeks painted themselves red as she realized just how much she had fallen for Rei. Sighing in resignation, Tsunade also pulled out a new set of clothes and started redressing. A minute later, exactly as Rei said, a white-haired woman wearing white kimono walked towards them. Her pace was slow, almost timid, and Rei instantly saw a few bruises on her face, no matter how low she tried to hold her head to hide them. Her steps were measured, calm, and careful, but it was all too easy to pinpoint the smallest of winces every time she stepped on her left foot. "So she is our contact in the Kagaya village? The one who wished our help to flee?" Rei frowned, and from the corner of his eyes, he could see that even Tsunade had her own conclusions from the state of the woman. These were certainly much worse than his, since she was a seasoned medic ninja. Rei could only mentally shake his head. "Well, I can guess why the woman would desire to run from the Kagaya clan. Meh, their loss, my gain. Hello, my name is Chizuru Kagaya. Nice to meet you." The woman bowed low as she introduced herself. "Am I correct to presume you are Rei and Conan of Yozora?" Rei lifted his eyebrow at her polite speech, while Tsunade chuckled. "I am Rei," he introduced himself before pointing at Tsunade. "And this is Tsunade. We heard you would be interested in emigration." "Yes, when I was visiting Kazari town with my husband, I certainly discreetly showed a desire to change my current owners to a local merchant from the Bairi company, who promised to arrange this meeting. I would be willing to come under your employ if you are willing to treat me well." Chizuru subconsciously rubbed her left forearm as she spoke in an even emotionless but polite tone. Tsunade didn't answer. She just abruptly moved towards Chizuru, who stiffened. Her posture instantly changed to a defensive one as her pupils dilated, only to relax when Tsunade showed her hand glowing in a coating of medical chakra. Chizuru then, still somewhat warily, let Tsunade approach her, and when Tsunade placed her palm onto Chizuru's bruised cheek, the white-haired woman took a sharp breath from the nice feeling it gave her. A stray tear rolled down her left cheek as she showed a bitter smile and sniffed. This single gesture of kindness was actually one of the nicest things in her life. Rei, on the other hand, watched the woman like a hawk before smirking. "And your real purpose being?" Chizuru barely restrained herself from taking a step back before sighing and giving Rei a sheepish expression. "As expected, I really can't keep secrets. My desire is for women of the Kagaya clan who desire a safe haven to be accepted by you. At first, I wanted to see the conditions and the way you will treat me, and if I deem it appropriate, I would request dash. Fine, fine." Rei waved his hand in annoyance. The woman was just too polite. Honestly, it was a bit irritating for him. "We can take all of those who are willing to leave with us right now. Do you still want to come and check the conditions by yourself, or are you willing to gamble?" he shrewdly asked. Chizuru slowly looked towards Tsunade before lowering her head. "I accept. If you can take all of us, then I would be glad," she quietly said. "Well then, God for you that Tsunade made the preparations," Rei said, making Tsunade darkly chuckle. "Yup, I wonder how effective my newest anti-Kagaya drug will be." The chilly night wind spread through the Kagaya village as the time neared 1 a.m. Slowly, a mist started to form, blanketing the area, but the guards did not panic as this was natural for the land of water. They only checked if there is a chakra in the mist, and when they discovered there was none, their shoulders immediately relaxed. Minutes ticked by as the mist thickened, and soon, by the time the clock rang 2 a.m., the mist covered the whole village in a thick white mist. The Kagaya clansmen slowly became weary and sluggish, their eyes dropping as their bones appeared to become heavier and heavier in their bodies. The whole village fall asleep. At the entrance, Rei, Tsunade, and Chizuru watched as the white mist with zero visibility cleared in under 10 seconds, only faint wisps of it remaining in the area. To think such a way to defeat the fabled Kagaya clan existed. Chizuru whispered to herself in utter astonishment, as she remembered the pill Tsunade gave her to counter the effects of her drug that was spread through the village alongside Rei's mist. Chizuru, like every member of the Kagaya clan, lived with a simple perception of the world. Violence and brutal physical might were supposed to be the greatest thing. Thanks to the Kagaya physique, even poisons that would be instantly lethal to others only made them ill for an hour or two. When Chizuru saw her clansmen fall unconscious due to some unknown drug, she was scared beyond the grave, and suddenly Tsunade became somebody to be regarded only with the utmost respect. From then on, the entire mission was incredibly easy. They strolled around the sleeping village, feeding pills to women at whom Chizuru pointed, explained the situation, watched how those women rejoiced, before gathering in the square when Chizuru's entire group of around 60 young women was awake. After that, both Tsunade and Rei created around 30 clones each and sent one clone, with one woman, to gather other people in the village they would be taking. This time, they didn't wake them, and they would be relocated while unconscious. Man, who would think I would be kidnapping young kids and girls? Rei whined as he watched around 40 sleeping kids under 5 years old being placed on the square right, next to the sleeping forms of around 100 girls up to 17 years old. I somehow feel really dirty. Rei deadpanned, making Tsunade giggle. Well, just imagine what would become of them without us doing this. She tried to cheer him up, causing Rei to give her a playful look. Sure, we can count this as righteous kidnapping then. He nodded with a snort. It didn't take long for around 300 of the Kagaya clansmen, most of them still asleep, to be relocated to Yuzushio. Just like that, the biggest case of missing people greeted the world.